Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies.
Let it
resound.
Let it resound.
Loud as the rolling sea.
I like this part right here. Come on.
Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on.
Let us march on.
Till victory is won.
Now we add a little something to it. Just to encourage you. We're going to take you to church later. Let's go.
We'll keep marching, fighting till the victory is won.
To all my brothers out there.
Hold your head up, brothers, till the victory is won.
To all my sisters in the struggle.
Keep believing, sister, till the victory is won.
Till that day.
Till that day comes.
Hey.
Let us march on.
To victory.
Till victory is won. Is won.
and actually run that very ballot that was sent to you through the tabulator. So I'd like to explain it. If you're somebody who maybe likes the luxury of having your ballot at home, so you can sit at your coffee table, do your research, you can still do that, but then you can still run the ballot through the tabulator at the early vote center or at your precinct on election day. One small thing to remember, though, this one doesn't have it, this example, but normally there's a stub on your absentee ballot, and there are numbers on that stub. Leave that attached. If you plan to vote, if you plan to bring your absentee ballot to the polls, or even if you're putting it in the mail, make sure you leave that stub attached. Sometimes it's a perforated stub, so sometimes people take it off. Don't take it off, though. We need that in order to make sure that the ballot that was issued to you is the ballot that you're returning. So usually what happens is you take that ballot and then you put it into another envelope, and this is the return envelope you take to your local clerk. Most important thing on this one is to sign it. If you don't sign it, your clerk is not going to be able to accept your absentee ballot, so don't forget to sign it. The other option that I mentioned that I'm very excited about, a major change in Michigan, is early in-person voting. How many folks got a postcard like this in the mail? Hopefully everybody did. And so what this had on it is information about early in-person voting. This is not new to the United States, but it is new to Michigan. About 23 other states have some form of early in-person voting, and now Michigan joins those ranks. What that means is that starting the second Saturday before every election, running all the way through to the Sunday before Election Day, you have the option to visit the early vote center, which is near the courthouse here in Saginaw, and you can vote, fill out your ballot, and run it through a tabulator 9 days before Election Day even happens. And so we have an election going on right now. Tuesday is Election Day for the February presidential primary. It's an election where you will vote for the candidate for your particular party, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, who you want to be the candidate representing you as president for that party. Now, if you're someone who does not align with either of those parties, but you have a local proposal on your ballot, you can also request the ballot that has only the local proposal and no political candidates on it. So, for example, I live in the city of Saginaw, and so if I was neither a Democrat or a Republican, or maybe I just don't like either candidate, I could ask for the proposal only ballot, and it will have my, I think it's a fire and public safety millage that's going on here in the city of Saginaw. So that's an option for you as well. And like I said, early voting's happening now. We're open today till 5, so I have to head out to get back there before 5. And we're open tomorrow is our last day for early voting, 9 to 5. And so if you got some errands to run tomorrow, you can stop by the early vote center 9 to 5 and cast your vote for the Tuesday election. And then, of course, our last option is voting in person on Election Day. You still absolutely have that right to vote 7 to 8 p.m. on Election Day. And the handout that I gave you also has all of the elections. So I talked about the February presidential primary is happening right now and will happen on Tuesday is actual election day. But there's also an August primary, and that's where you'll be asked to vote for, again, people from a particular party that best represent your views that you want to send on to the general election, which is in November. So we'll have 3 elections this year. All of them big, all of them important. So just want to keep that top of mind to make sure that you choose one of those 3 options. I'm most excited about the Early Vote Center because we're hosting it at the county, and so I hope to see your smiling faces, and it's an opportunity to cast your ballot even before Election Day ever happens. So, yeah, with that, are there any questions from anybody? Questions? Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So did you get an application sent to you? Okay. 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 So for you, if you want to vote by absentee, at this point, we're so close to Election Day on Tuesday. If you want to vote by absentee, you're going to want to visit your city clerk, or you can visit the early vote center. So even though it didn't get sent to you, you still have an opportunity to vote. If you decide to sit this one out and you want to wait and get your absentee for August, your city clerk's phone number is on this handout. So I don't remember if you were in here when I handed them out. So when I swing by, I'll give you one. So call them and let them know you want to be on the absentee application list for August, and they'll send you one then. Yes. Yep. Anyone else? Okay. Yes. Okay. Mhm. Uh-huh. Yes. Right. Okay. So it would have been on. Yeah, your application looked a little bit different than this in Buena Vista, but this was just the application. And so every application, depending on where you live, looked a little bit different, but it should have still had that I want to vote absentee in all elections options. If you don't recall checking the box, though, you can again call your local clerk and let them know you want to be added to the permanent ballot list. And on this, if you forget, the language that I'm using, the permanent ballot list is right here. The information about it. So when you call, it's in that middle page. When you call your local clerk, whose number is on here, mention you want to check to see if you added yourself to the permanent ballot list. Yep. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm gonna give you some instruction what to do with the card. With the card, you may find a letter on that card. Because this is Black History Month, each letter, I want you to be able to find something that was invented with starting with that letter. For instance, B is so easy, and we all need it to live, and so B is for blood. So you can pick any letter that you want to, but I need you to go down and it's going to spell out Black history when we finish. So you have your B's, you have your L's, you have your A's, you have your C's and your K, and then you have your H, you have your I, you have your S, you have, I'm spelling it wrong, huh? T-O-R-Y for story. So you can get in groups if you would like to, and we can have a side A over here, and we can have a side B over here, and then we'll just say, everybody is a winner. But I want you to be able to call out your answers. I'm gonna give you, I am going to, does everybody have a card? This is our icebreaker for right now. Okay. Yes, whatever was invented, use that letter. Whatever was in there, okay? Okay. I'm gonna give you about 10 minutes, and then, okay. Okay. How are we doing? Are we coming up with some new inventions? help Brother Bell out. Some ladies, you all help Brother Bell out. All right. You have one? Okay. How is this side doing over here? You doing okay? Okay. Huh? Oh, many as you want. Go through the whole, whatever your letter is, because everybody have a different letter. So I'm just going to call out the letter, and then I want that person to stand up and tell me what, what word you have. Okay. You very welcome. Very correct. You're right. That's what I have. All right, Sister Doris. Thank you, Sister Angie. Sister Doris? Okay. Okay. Okay, then. Thank you. Okay. Brother Bell? Well, that's good. The light. We need the light to see. Okay. Yes, Sister Jackie. Yes. All right, girl. Go, girl. That's all right. All right. Anybody else in this room? Yes. Sister Rochelle? O- Okay. And for bus. Okay. All right. All right. Do we have anybody else on this side? Yes, Sister Chandra. Okay. Well, thank you. Okay. Yes, Sister Claudia. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. You've been shifting gears, huh? Okay. Are we finished over here? Does any Sister Rosalind? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see her hand. Who hand I didn't see? Was it Sister Rosalind hand? That's- Okay. Oh, well, who made it? All right. See there, ladies, you don't have to roll out the biscuits anymore. You just call them up. Okay. You all did excellent. Give your hands up a hand over here. Uh-uh. Miss Rochelle. Rochelle number two. My neighbor. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. See, we learned something new. All right. All right. All right. Let me see how this side gonna do today. How you gonna fare off? Okay. Miss Ruffin. B. Okay. Okay. Yes. That's it. That was the main one I had on there. Blood plasma and Black History Month. All right. Miss Darlene, my sister-in-law. Okay, well, we finished that one icebreaker. So now we are going to get ready for our ladies who so graciously, yes, Miss Sister Faye. No, I didn't. Oh my goodness, after me. Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? He probably was in the family because my son's like working on engines. Okay. Thank you so much. You all, oh my goodness, you all are smart. You know that? So I just thank you. Even with the help of the phone, with the help of your brains, and the help of your friends, you all are just excellent. Thank you so much for participating in the icebreaker. At this time, we're going to have our queens come up and they're going to share some stories with you. We started this thing a long time ago. We did it once before with our ladies, but we always do it also with the NAACP. And Ms. Wilson, she has always read a story to us. But this time she said, Brenda, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to let you read the story. And so Ms. Wilson is here today, one of my NAACP members, and I thank you for coming and I thank you for sharing some of the books up here that you have up here. So thank you very much. So at this time, may I have Sister Claudia come up and tell your story? Amen. Give her a hand, please.
Hello. I'm going to read a poem titled Black History Tribute by Dana Pilgrim. I gave you a piece of me, my mind, my passion, my vision, which you used but did not recognize my identity. You did not talk about me, who I was, what I contributed. You maced me and beat me when all I wanted was to be recognized for my genius, for my creativity, and for my hard work. I am Black. I am an African American. I owe those before me, those today, and those tomorrow to speak about their glory, their fight, and their royalty. Yes, we are royalty. We are a resilient culture full of many great beings. We have shared for years, gave and gave. We must recognize the blood, sweat, and tears of those who brought music, art, education, technology, politics, law, activism, sports, and medicine that provided a foundation to our nation. Celebrate us, appreciate us, honor us, thank us, and by all means, recognize us.
Thank you. That was beautiful, wasn't it? We ladies want to be recognized and we all want to be thanked. Give thanks to. Okay, next we're going to call up Sister Katana. Normally, I keep my mask on I keep my mask on and I only take it off to eat and to drink. But I am going to go ahead and take it off so to make sure you guys can hear the words that are coming out of my mouth. Am I too black? They take my kindness for weakness. They take my silence as speechless. They see my uniqueness as strange. They call my language slang. They see my confidence as conceit, my mistakes as defeat. They see my success as accidental, minimize my intelligence to potential. My questions mean I'm unaware.
Somehow my advancement is so unfair. Any praise is preferential treatment, and to voice my concerns is discontentment. If I stand up for myself, I'm too defensive. If I don't trust them, I'm too apprehensive. I'm deviant if I separate. I'm a fake if I assimilate. My character is constantly under attack. Pride for my race makes me too black.
And at this time, may we have Sister Carlene Bradley come up with us?
I decided to go with Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes served as a mentor for many young black writers of the 50s and the 60s. He was born in Joplin, Missouri on February the 1st, 1901. He grew up in Lawrence, Kansas, and he was a poet of the people and a writer. He was educated in Lincoln University from 1926 to 1929, and he's known as the Dream Keeper. He has a poem that says, "The Dream Keeper. Bring me all of your dreams, your dreamers. Bring me all of your heart melodious, that I may wrap them in the blue cloud cloth, away from the too rough world." Another one that he has is "The Feet of Jesus." And it says, "At the feet of Jesus, sorrow like a sea. Lordy, let your mercy come drifting down on me. At the feet of Jesus, at the feet I stand. Oh, my precious Jesus, please reach out your hand."
At this time, we're going to have Sister Rochelle Gilbert come up, please. Good afternoon, my brothers and my sister. Today, I'm going to just read you a couple of short essays out of a book called African American History. James Weldon Johnson, many of you might not really know this, but he wrote the song, "Lift Every Voice and Sing. To earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise. High as the listening skies, let it resound loud as the rolling sea." James Weldon Johnson was one of the most important and versatile writers of his time. With his brother, J. Roseman Johnson, he composed "Lift Every Voice and Sing," sometimes called the Negro National Anthem. The Johnson brothers were among the first black composers whose songs were performed in Broadway musicals. James Weldon was also an acclaimed poet and novelist.
His books, The Autobiography of an Ex-Color Man and Guy's Trombones, are considered classic of African American literature. In addition to excelling as a creative artist, he spent many years as an official with the NAACP. During that time, he campaigned for a law that would make lynching a federal crime. A bill was introduced in Congress several times, but the Senate never approved it. In the city of Saginaw, we have an organization from A. Philip Randolph here, and it's an active organization here in Saginaw. And as we know, A. Philip Randolph was one of the ones who organized the labor union for the railroad workers. You know, as we know, we have railroads right behind the church here, and it's still here right today. So A. Philip Randolph organized labor unions with just one of A. Philip Randolph's many accomplishments. In 1917, he co-founded and co-edited The Messenger, a leading journal of black ideas. In 1941, after years of fighting for equal opportunity, he announced plans for a march on Washington. He planned to bring 10,000 black protesters to the nation capital, led President Franklin Roosevelt to ban discrimination in the defense industries, federal agencies, and unions. Randolph called off the march, but revived his plan in the summer of 1963 when he joined Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, and other civil rights leaders in the largest public demonstration the country has ever seen. Thank you for your time. I also have a few handouts today with some of the questions they were asked the people back in the day. In order for them to vote, they had to answer certain questions, so I have those to share with you also. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right, as you all know, February is the Black History Month, and we're blessed to have 29 days in this month. 29 days instead of the usual 28. This is leap year. So take that in mind and be sure to use all 29 days to celebrate our Black History Month. I'm going to share with you at this time quotes from the book Divine Disruption. It was written by Dr. Tony Evans and his 4 siblings, but I'm going to share with you today some of Dr. Evans' quotes. All right. Divine Disruption was written by Dr. Tony Evans. He's pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship Church in Dallas, Texas. Life has been interrupted, but we have to believe there is a divine message in the disruption somehow, one that could save our lives and ultimately bring us closer to each other and to God. For believers, the present is not life. This is only an invitation to life. This is not our permanent home. Dr. Evans also says, always remember through thick and thin that you are here to serve the purposes of God. Sometimes God allows discomfort and distress because he wants us to move in closer to him. When God allows a divine disruption, it is time for a divine reset. Remember, too, a high view of God says the crisis no longer has the last word. I cannot deny the circumstances, says Dr. Evans, but I can refuse to give circumstances the final say. He also says that God says that no matter where we are in life, no matter what we have been through, we can always start over again. God brings beauty from ashes, joy from pain, faith from our deepest fears. Remember to surrender, renovate, reset for the divine disruption. Remember from the pandemic, the wars, and other issues, the Lord has made divine disruption to prepare for a divine reset. There's a purpose behind the problem. God is shaking the earth to reveal heaven. When God disrupts something, it serves to highlight the spiritual over the physical. Sometimes, in order to prioritize over spiritual health, we need to pull away from anything that might be holding us back. The divine disruption reminds us that even in our most painful moments, healing can begin. Faith can grow stronger, and God can bring new purpose and hope, not in spite of our pain, but through it. Remember, divine disruption is holding on to faith when life breaks your heart. When God allows a divine disruption, it is time for a divine reset.
Amen. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I thank Brenda for asking me. I always tell Brenda now, I was a radical back in the 60s. So whatever I say about black history, it usually comes from my heart. But the quote that I found that I really like is not long, but it says, I am American. I am the part you won't recognize. But get used to me. Black, confidence, cocky. My name's not yours. My religion not yours. My goals not yours. Get used to me. By Muhammad Ali.
All right, did you all hear that? Just get used to me, okay? Because I'm not you and you not me, so we just have to be our own, right? And accept the individual for who they are, because God made us all unique in our own ways. At this time, my guests have arrived. Our first guest, she left already, Mr. Pruitt. That was Vanessa. And now we have Mr. Pruitt, who is the president of the NAACP, and he is going to tell his story in his own way about Black history. Also, I am one of the members who sit on the executive board at the NAACP. And I just thank Terry, because Terry is a go-getter. He makes sure you do what you're supposed to do. And his main goal is to make sure you get out there and vote. He wants to be in the community, and that's what we have done. We have always educated the community. And so that is one of our goals, to help educate each other in church as well. So at this time, I give you Mr. Terry Pruitt, the president of the NAACP.
People get ready. There's a train a coming. You don't need no ticket. You just thank the Lord. I won't go any further. I sing those few words because Dr. King, his favorite spiritual was Precious Lord, but the anthem for the civil rights movement, he often referred to the impressions, people get ready. You know, there's a train a-coming, and you don't need a ticket. All you got to do is get on board. So I'm pleased to be here. I won't take a lot of time, but there are 3 or 4 things I want to share with you very quickly, because I think not only does it help to place this thing we call Black history in perspective, but it also helps us to figure out where we are in this whole grand scheme of equality and where we need to go. And none of us have all the answers, but on the other hand, none of us are too old to keep learning and to keep participating and sustain a commitment. So I want to talk just briefly about that, but let me just tell you a little bit more about, I'm looking out there and I see several faces, and some of you know me and some of you really don't. I was born and raised right here in Saginaw, grew up on the east side of Saginaw, graduated from Saginaw High School in 1966. 4 days ago, I celebrated my 76th birthday. I know I don't look like that, and I can still move a little bit, but I'm 76 years old. So all of that to say this, I'm a product of the civil rights movement. I was in college with the Berkeley campaigns and the uprising on Kent State University. I left Saginaw High and went to college. I'm the first graduate from a college with a college degree on either side of my family, mother's side or father's side. I graduated from Western Michigan University in 1970 with a degree in business administration, the only black student of 22,000 students on campus to graduate with a degree in business. I went to college, you know, because of my athletic ability. And when I look back over my life, God's been good to me. He has blessed me in a number of different ways. He has blessed me to ultimately become the leader of the local branch of our NAACP. And I think, I am absolutely convinced it is a calling for me. But throughout my years in college, I really learned a lot, and you had to make some choices. I was a track star. When I left Saginaw High in 1966, I was the second fastest sprinter in the state of Michigan. There's only one guy in the state of Michigan that could beat me in the 100 meters, and he was out of Flint. And so in 1968, how many of you recall the 68 Olympics and what happened? There were 3 black men who stood on the podium who had won awards and medals, and what did they do? They raised their fist, they put it in the air. I ran against John Carlos, Lee Evans, and Tommy Smith in college. They weren't personal friends of mine. We were competitors, but I knew them, and they knew me. So, having gone through that experience, you begin to educate yourself about what was going on and the tremendous acrimony that those kids had to go through at that point, and the finger pointing, and the blackballing that took place with those 3 gentlemen. And being an athlete and in the middle of the Vietnam War and seeing how our young black men were coming back to this country and being mistreated after they fought for this country was something that really impacted my thinking and my thoughts about where I needed to be and what I need to be doing. So, long story short, I came back to this community with every intention of leaving because I had some job offers. I was a good student. When I graduated from Saginaw, I had 27 on the ACT. I had as many academic scholarships as I had athletic opportunities. I decided to do both, be a good athlete and be a good student. I finished a master's degree program in 1968 in 12 months, 30-hour program and with a 3.85 grade point average at Central Michigan University. And I'm not patting myself on the back or bragging. I'm just saying a little kid, a little black boy from the east side of Saginaw can make it. That's a message that I preach to all young people all the time, that if I can do it and I can show you the way, then you can do it. That's my whole purpose in even saying that, because it doesn't really mean anything. You know, when I won't even go that way. I won't even tell that story. But let me just say a couple other things, and then I'll talk about voting a little bit and the significance of that, and how we can connect the NAACP and the church a lot better than we do at this point. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are endowed with inalienable rights by their Creator. The pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, those are all words and phrases from what? The Declaration of Independence in 1976. There were 56 people, all white, who signed off on that. Do you know how many of them actually owned slaves when they put their name on there and they started talking about liberty and freedom and all the rights? 41 out of the 56 actually owned slaves. Some of them we've heard about. Thomas Jefferson, we don't even know how many slaves and babies he had. But my point is this. From day one, the words that were on paper didn't match the reality. You had people talking about freedom and escaping from the British and declaring their independence, but they were enslaving people and denying them their right to exist in freedom. And so we've got to understand where we've come as a nation and not continue down this path of trying to hide the history of this country, because we can all learn from it. We don't ever want to go back there. And so we need to help our young people understand the development and the building of this nation and where we all came from. Everybody sitting in this room is a descendant of somebody that was probably brought here against their will. And so we need to help people understand that. But beyond that, we need to help them understand the contribution that we, people who look like us, made to the building of this country. And so it's critically important that we continue to fight the battle against those who would deny our history and our contributions to the development and the building of this country. Now, the start of the NAACP was in 1909, so it's been around. It's the oldest, boldest, most discussed and most cussed civil rights organization in the world, okay? We still here, and we still do a lot of work. Nobody filed more lawsuits in the last 3 years against discrimination and illegal acts than the NAACP. Following the Springfield, Illinois riots in 1908, the NAACP was organized in 1909. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't know, that half of the original founders were white, not black. And indeed, I see Mrs. Carpenter, I see Thelma Ruffin and Brenda. Some of them have gone to some of our meetings, state meetings and national meetings. If you ever have an opportunity and sit down with 8,000, 10,000 delegates at an NAACP convention, there are a lot of white folks there that believe, like we believe, that we ought to have the right to vote, that we ought to right to change some of the criminal justice system so there's more fairness and equality. So it is not just a black organization. It is not just about the rights of black citizens. It's about the rights of all citizens in this country. If you can do it, we can do it too. All right? So, Saginaw, this is something you may not know, but we've been in existence with the NAACP branch here for 105 years, right here in Saginaw. So the question is, well, what do we need the NAACP for in Saginaw in 1919? How many of you have worked for General Motors and retired or still work for General Motors? 1919 was the year that the Marble Iron and the Gray Iron, right up the street here, opened. They sent trains and brought folks who look like us by the trainload back to work in those foundries. They gave them the worst jobs, and do you know that people didn't even have a home or a place to sleep? People would get off their shift at the Gray Iron on North Washington and actually sleep outside the gate. They wouldn't even let you live beyond Potter Street, south of Potter Street. You had to stay in the first ward. The conditions were terrible. And so some of the black leadership at that time reached out to the NAACP in New York and said, come help us in Saginaw. And there were a couple lawsuits. There was some outreach to our city leadership to provide some housing and some assistance to people who were just brought here and dropped off and said, you going to work. My father spent 38 years at the Gray Iron and died from asbestos cancer, lung cancer. So, those stories are real, and that's why we had to have the NAACP here. This community has a history of discrimination and racism. In the 60s and 70s, we had to fight redlining. I, as a young city employee, when I came back here in 1970, 71, I actually ended up working for the city of Saginaw. At the age of 26, I was the only black department head in City Hall and the youngest city department head. I was 26 years old as a city department head. I was a community organizer when I originally started with the city, and eventually became the director of the Model Cities program and a city department head, and had to fight a lot of battles and grow up very quickly to deal with them politicians and them folks who didn't want me in the job or not telling them what to do. I had white members on my staff who initially told me I was too young and they weren't going to listen to me. And I said, well, you're going to have to find another job because you're going to listen to me or you're going to get out. Because I'm the person that you report to at this point. And if you don't like that, you got to go. You either with me or what? You're against me. Okay? So we have to understand where we've come from and where we are today. The NAACP still exists in this community. We still fight back. There are things that go on in this community that are related to racism and discrimination that it doesn't hit the paper, because I purposely try to deal with some of these things in the back room. I really do, because what eventually you want to see is people get new leadership who understand and have policies and activities that do not create barriers and discrimination for employees. You know, we've got one of the largest employers in Saginaw County. I had to deal with a situation last year, 2 situations in the same institution, where we had a white supervisor in a staff meeting, 25, 30 people in there, 1 black person in the meeting, and the supervisor used the N-word in a meeting. But check this out. It wasn't the black employee who called me. It was one of her white peers who said, Mr. Pruitt, she knew me. She said, Mr. Pruitt, I had to call you today because you need to know what happened today. This is what happened. And I was just appalled. I was taken aback. And it was astonishing to have her use that word. So I immediately got on the phone and called the CEO And I said, you and I have to meet immediately. Well, we really don't need the NAACP to get involved. I said, yes, you do. Because if you don't, there's going to be a whole bunch of other folks get involved. And we had a meeting. And I sat across the desk from her and I said, listen, you've got to deal with this. And it's bigger than the one person that committed that act. There's a culture. There's a problem here if that person even thinks that they can get away with it. And her immediate response was, well, we'll do an investigation, and if suspension is warranted, then we will take that action. And I said, well, you ought to consider terminating, because I can't understand how you can justify having a supervisor leading a team of people who's bringing that kind of baggage and bias to the table. I picked up sitting next to me was a copy of their annual report, one of these corporation annual reports. I didn't tell you, but when I left the city of Saginaw in 1978, I went to Dow Corning Corporation. I spent 25 years there. I ended up being the director of public affairs and government relations for Dow Corning. I spent the last 10 years at Dow Corning as the company's lobbyist in Lansing. There was only 2 black corporate lobbyists in Lansing at the time. And it was both an advantage and disadvantage because, first of all, it was an advantage. If I walked in the room, one of those committee hearings or any of those meetings, they knew Dow Corning was in the room because I was the only one there. On the other hand, it was a constant challenge because there were too many of my white associates and peers who didn't think I deserved to be there. That how can you be the spokesperson for a major multinational billion-dollar corporation? And believe me, it was not easy. It was not easy even getting the job. I had to go to the CEO and says, listen, here's my credentials, here's my background. You tell me why I can't have this job. And I found out that I wasn't even on the list to even be considered. But when he looked at my history at City Hall, when I told him that I already knew 2 of the elected representatives in Lansing, that I had worked on their campaigns to help them get elected, I already had an inroad. I already knew them. I already could pick up the phone and call them. They finally said, okay. And the interesting part of the conversation was, well, Terry, we've decided that we're going to take a chance and give you this position. And I said, Mr. Hazelton, this is the CEO of the company. Stop right there. Because if you think that there's some risk, that you think you're taking a chance, then keep the job. I need your full support, and you clearly understand why, because I'm walking into one of those danger zones. I'm going to be walking into Lansing every other day, meeting with the governor and department heads and legislators, and I'm black. And if you ain't got my back, I don't need this job. You give it to somebody else. But my point is this. I sat there with her, going back to the hospital situation, picked up that annual report. On the first page is a statement and comments from the chairman of the board. What color was he? White. How old was he? Over 50. Second page, presentation and comments from the CEO. What color was she? She was over 50 and white. The next, third page, the board of trustees, the leadership of the organization. All of them, again, middle-aged white men with the exception of 2 women out of 12 people. Fourth page, a listing of all the department heads with their pictures and their titles. How many of them look like me? Not one of them. So I said, this is where you got to start. Because none of the leadership in this institution, this organization, represents the community. They all think alike, y'all all look alike, And the problem we're having when it comes to these racial situations in the organization is none of y'all know how to deal with it. And you want to pretend that it doesn't happen. It doesn't. She ended up suggesting, telling me that they were going to start doing some diversity training. And I asked her to describe to me what that looked like and what was that going to consist of. And she had a tough time doing that. And I offered to help her because having spent 25 years at Dow Corning, been there, done that. Okay. And so they started down that path and journey. I've checked in with her several times. We meet on occasion to talk about it and that kind of thing. It's not going that well because there is some pushback from some of the white employees. And you hear the rancor and some of the wording and some of the discussion going around about diversity training and all this other stuff, and it's racist and it's reverse racism and all this other stuff. But we all have some baggage. We all come to the table with some biases. There are white folks who don't like you just because you look like you look. They just don't. They have this belief that you are not capable, that you cannot compete with them, that they're better than you. There are people who still think like that. That is not all. That is not all white folks. I would not have made it in corporate America if there wasn't some white folks who helped me get there. And I understand that. One of my biggest supporters was at one point my biggest obstacle. My first year at the corporation, I'm sitting in a staff meeting with a corporate vice president, and he called me boy at least 6 times in a 2-hour meeting. Everybody else, and again, I'm the only African American sitting in this room, in this team, everybody else had a first or last name and he referenced them. But every time he looked at Terry Pruitt, I was the boy in the room. And I was so frustrated. And every time he said it, I got madder and madder and madder. Now, you know, somebody earlier said they came out of the streets and hey, I was a young man. But I said, you know, I've only been here about a year and a half. I can't get ushered out the front door right now. I still got some work to do and prove to these people that I need to be here. I asked him to stand with me after the meeting and to have a conversation. And I gave him the whole history and legacy of the term boy. And I said, I don't ever want you to do that to me again. And I said, the next time it happens in a meeting where there are other people, then I'm going to embarrass you in the meeting. I might get fired, but I'm going to embarrass you. I need your help. I don't need my peers, the people that I have to compete with as I move through this corporation, who already think I shouldn't be there, to think that I'm a boy, that I'm less than them. And he understood. He was the person, one of the 2 people that I went to and said, I want that job. I want to be the director. And he was one of those, he says, Pruitt, you got my support. You got my support. And that was 10 years later, that happened. But he and I maintained contact. He apologized. He understood exactly what I was saying. Don't do that to me again in front of these folks. Okay? Let me talk about voting. That's what I really came here for. But you need to understand some of this, where I came and why I fought. My wife asked me, when are you going to stop doing this? I said, Carolyn, we've been married 52 years, and I've done it every year I was a community organizer when you met me, and we got married. I'm not going to stop. You know, God said, go do it, and that's what I'm going to do. This year, you will hear over and over again that this is probably is the most important election that we will ever, in our lifetimes, experience. There is so much truth to that. And it goes well beyond who our president is. Now, let me just address that very quickly, because there's too much consternation out there about these guys are too old, they can't do this. Let me tell you the truth. The real truth is one of them going to be president. And you can decide to sit it out, and you can decide to complain about their age and all that other stuff. But one of them's going to be leading this country. And you need to decide which one you can support and vote for them. Now, let me back off of that. I started out by saying it's more than about who we elect as the next president, because in many respects, what that person does in the White House doesn't always have a whole lot of direct impact on you and I on a day-to-day basis. There are a whole lot of other folks who sit in policy and legislative positions who have impact on how fast you can drive down the street, where you can cross the street at, what it's going to cost you to buy a car, how much interest you're going to pay on a loan. Those things impact us every day. What the curriculum looks like, how our kids get educated. Those are the decisions that are made at the local and state level. Do you realize that every county commissioner is up for re-election in August and November? They represent you. Our county prosecutor, our county clerk, our county register of deeds, every major, the sheriff, all of them are up for election in 2024, and it matters who sits in those seats. It matters who decides how we have to live our lives right here locally. There are 6 members of the city council who are up for election. There are 3 or 4 of the school board members in the city of Saginaw who are up for. Those are people you know. Those are people who will make decisions about how many schools you're going to have, how many teachers, what they're going to get paid. Those are people you're going to be asked to vote for in the months ahead. So you need to educate yourself about who they are and what the issues are, and you absolutely must participate in the election. You know, I started out talking about the Declaration of Independence and the signing and that kind of thing. Why do we go through all of the last 400 years and then all of us as black citizens in a community sit there and say we ain't gonna vote? We're standing on some tough shoulders. You know, we're standing on some legacy and some work that some people did in order for us to be able to do it. And my argument simply is this. This thing we call democracy, the very foundation of it is our ability to choose who makes decisions for us. And when we don't do that, we actually defer and allow somebody else to make the decision for us, and it may not be the thing that we want them to do. You have got to get with your family, your cousins, your sons, your daughters, your grandchildren, if they're old enough, and insist that they vote. And if you got some of those crazy arguments, tell them to call me about why they ain't gonna do it. You know, I hear it all the time. They just gonna go and do what they want to do. Well, then you didn't put the right person there. If they won't listen to you, then put somebody there who will. Okay? So, you know, I want to just wind this down right now, but I think the other thing is I'm going to work real hard to invite the churches to connect with us. The NAACP and the churches have such a long history. Do you realize in most communities, the only place the NAACP could even have a meeting was in somebody's church? You wouldn't go to the public center and the public building to do it. The only place you could do it was at some pastor who would invite you at risk, in many communities in the South, at great risk, to host those NAACP meetings. So I have put together a 7-step plan for individual churches to make sure that everybody in their church is registered. What's on the ballot, what we need to do going up and leading up to Election Day. You heard from Vanessa, the election laws have changed, and so there is a much greater opportunity to participate in the voting process now than there ever has been. And so there is no excuse. You don't have to stand in line on Election Day. You know, you don't have to wait till November and it's real cold. You can vote from your house. You can take the time to study and look at the candidates and know who it is you're going to vote for. And so I'm going to ask you, but those letters and that information is going out, and your pastor's going to get one too. So somebody tell me if he don't acknowledge it, because I'm going to call him and say, hey, what's going on? I need you to do this. Step up to the plate. Okay? So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to come and spend a little bit of time with you and talk about this. But, you know, if you don't take anything else away from this, folks, we got to vote. We got to be amongst those who get counted this time around. We're going to have a tough time. You know, NAACP is nonpartisan. I cannot and will not endorse any candidates. But I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to turn my back. Y'all can't let 45 get back in that White House, okay? I didn't say that. Now, if all those recording, I'm going to deny it. You won't even have my picture, okay? But I need you to understand that, okay? I don't know how many of you heard what he just said last night or the night before last down in South Carolina, talking about the lights that were shining, and the only people he could see in the audience was the blacks. He's raised holy heck with a whole bunch of folks. They've got it on video. I mean, he said that. You know, so once again, I can't let 45 get back in that White House. Thank you very much.